40 years is a strange amount of time to look back on. Long enough that I've watched entire investment fads rise and vanish completely. Things that seemed permanent at the time, spoken about with total confidence by people who should have known better. And in all that time, sitting across desks from clients, at dinner tables with friends, in rooms full of people much smarter than me who lost money anyway, there's one pattern I keep coming back to. The people who actually built something lasting almost never looked exciting while they were doing it. The people chasing the exciting thing were usually gone within a few years, one way or another. I don't say that as an old man being nostalgic for simpler times. Every era has its version of the quick path, and every era has its version of me, sitting somewhere, watching it happen again. I want to be upfront about something before I go further. What I'm about to share is just what I've observed over a long career, watching real people make real decisions. It isn't a formula, and it certainly isn't advice for your specific situation. Anyone telling you they've found the one true path to wealth is usually about to ask you for money. Let me start with the phrase itself, because I think it gets misunderstood. Get rich slow sounds on the surface like a consolation prize. What you settle for once you've accepted, you're not going to get rich fast. That's not how I've come to understand it. The slowness isn't a compromise. It's the actual mechanism. It's not that slow as the backup plan when fast doesn't work out. It's that slow is usually the only version of this that was ever real to begin with. And the fast version was mostly an illusion built by people who needed you to believe in it. I watched this up close. Decades ago now, during a period when everyone I knew seemed to be talking about the same handful of investments at every party. Every family gathering, every casual lunch. I won't bore you naming the specific fad, because it doesn't matter which one. I've watched this exact emotional pattern repeat itself with different names attached, more times than I can count. What struck me back then, and what strikes me every time it happens again, is how identical the emotional experience is for everyone caught up in it. There's a specific kind of confidence that shows up when a lot of people are making money quickly at the same time. It doesn't feel like luck to the people inside it. It feels like understanding. It feels like they finally figured something out that other people, the cautious people, simply haven't caught on to yet. I remember a client, a good, careful man most of his life, who came to me convinced he'd found something the rest of us were too slow to see. I didn't argue with him much. I've learned over the years that arguing with someone in that state accomplishes almost nothing. They'll simply find someone else willing to nod along. What I did instead was ask him a question I've asked a lot of people over the years, in different forms. I asked him what would have to be true about the world for this to keep working the way it had been working. He didn't have a good answer. Most people in that position don't, because the honest answer is usually something like, everyone else has to keep believing what I believe, for exactly as long as I need them to. That's not an investment thesis. That's a hope dressed up as one. He lost most of what he'd put in, over about 18 months, in the ordinary, unremarkable way these things usually end. Not a dramatic crash on a single day, but a slow bleed. Each month a little worse than he expected, each month accompanied by a new reason why this time was different. Why the recovery was right around the corner. That pattern, more than the initial loss itself, is the part I want you to remember. The get-rich-quick story rarely ends with a single dramatic collapse that makes for a good headline. It usually ends slowly, with the person holding on longer than they should. Because admitting it was wrong means admitting something uncomfortable about their own judgment. Not just about the investment. Now, let me tell you about the other kind of person. Because I've known plenty of them too, and their stories are so much less interesting to tell that almost nobody bothers. I had another client, a woman who ran a small dental practice, unremarkable in every way that matters for this story. She didn't chase anything. She contributed to her retirement account every single month, the same percentage, whether the market was climbing or falling, whether her friends were bragging about some new opportunity or not. She didn't check her balance often. When I'd bring her updates, she'd nod politely and ask almost nothing about the details. For close to 30 years, this was frankly a boring relationship to have as a financial advisor. Nothing dramatic ever happened. Nothing dramatic was ever supposed to happen. She retired comfortably. More than comfortably, actually, with a level of financial security that would have surprised her 20-year-old self a great deal. And when I think about what actually made that possible, it wasn't a single decision, a single insight, a single moment of brilliance. It was the compounding of an extremely unglamorous habit, repeated without interruption for 3 decades. If you'd filmed her financial life and tried to make a video out of it, there wouldn't be a single exciting minute in the whole thing. That's rather the point. Here's something I've noticed about time itself that I don't think gets discussed enough. When you're young, a decade feels like an eternity, something almost theoretical, hard to actually picture yourself living through. When you're my age, looking backward, entire decades collapse down to a handful of memories, and you realize how quickly that supposedly eternal stretch of time actually passed. The slow path only feels unbearably slow to someone standing at the beginning of it. From where I sit now, looking back at people who started their slow, boring habit 30 or 40 years ago, it doesn't look slow at all. It looks like it happened almost overnight. And the person who benefited most is simply the one who didn't stop halfway, threw out of impatience. I think impatience is really the heart of all this, more than greed, more than ignorance. Most of the people I've watched get hurt chasing something fast weren't foolish people. Many of them were sharper than I am. What got them wasn't a lack of intelligence. It was an inability to tolerate the discomfort of watching other people seem to move faster than them, for a while, without knowing whether that speed was real or borrowed against a future collapse. Patience in this line of work isn't really a financial skill. It's an emotional one, and it's rare precisely because it's hard. Not because it's complicated. I want to say something else, something that might sound like a contradiction at first. Slow doesn't mean passive, and it certainly doesn't mean uninformed. Every person I've watched build something lasting the slow way was paying close attention the entire time. Reading, learning, adjusting, occasionally making real mistakes and correcting course. The difference between them and the person chasing the fast path wasn't effort or attention. It was what they were paying attention to. One group was watching for the next big opportunity. The other was watching their own habits, their own spending, their own consistency. Month after unremarkable month, there's a version of this I've watched play out with businesses too. Not just investments. And it might resonate with some of you thinking about starting something of your own. I've known people who built modest, boring little businesses, nothing glamorous, nothing that would ever make an exciting story, who ended up 20 years later, sitting on more real wealth than friends of theirs who'd chased flashier ventures the entire time. The boring business owner wasn't smarter. They were simply still standing after 2 decades. Still showing up, still doing the unremarkable work, while several flashier competitors had already come and gone. Sometimes more than once, I want to be honest about something, because I don't think it's fair to pretend the slow path is without its own real costs. There is a genuine cost to watching other people appear to succeed faster than you, year after year, and choosing to stay the course anyway. I've watched good, sensible people go through real periods of doubt, wondering if they were simply too cautious, too old-fashioned, too slow to adapt to a world that seemed to be rewarding boldness over patience. Some of them wavered. A few abandoned their slow, steady habits at exactly the wrong moment, right as the flashy alternative was nearing its own collapse, which is a particularly painful kind of bad timing to witness. The slow path asks something real of a person. It asks them to tolerate looking, for years at a time, like they might be wrong. Even when they aren't. If there's one thing I'd want you to carry away from 40 years of watching this play out, again and again, in different decades, with different names attached to the same basic pattern. It's this. The word slow and get rich, slow isn't describing a flaw in the method. It's describing the actual price of the thing working at all. Anyone offering you a version without that price attached is either mistaken about what they're offering, or they know exactly what they're offering and are simply hoping you won't ask the question. I asked that client all those years ago, what would have to be true about the world for this to keep working the way it's working right now? Most of the time, when you actually sit with that question honestly, the answer tells you everything you need to know.